Hello, Bizarre Story fiends. If you're listening right now, you're tuned in to the Bizarre AF, where we talk about the strange, the absurd, the unknown, and all things Bizarre AF. I'm Alesha, your host for today's episode. And like always, we ask you keep an open mind, keep a skeptical ear, but keep on listening to the facts as we take you on our newest journey. Government official meets extraterrestrials. Oh, goodness. Hello.
Hi, girl.
Hi, how are you doing, Kevin?
Super swell on this cold and snowy day.
Dude, seriously. I know I keep on saying that I would come up with like some kind of concoction with us to drink. And I think today, I definitely had help from you. We are sipping on some... You already finished it? Shut up. When did that happen?
Just a minute ago. I'm like, I don't think I'm liking this now.
I think it's really good. So actually, this is like a tequila cream,
very interesting.
Like Bailey's, but it has like some lime in it. It was totally weird. I'm like, I have to try it.
It's weird, but then I'm like, kept drinking it. I'm like, yeah, it's good.
This goes down a little bit too easy, and it's tequila, so go figure.
Yum, yum.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, God. So I'm happy that you like the little twist of I don't know, it was a coffee.
We'll have to tell people what it is or put it in the notes because when I first sipped it, it was like I could taste like thyme. It had this like little essence of thyme. It was interesting.
It's like a savory component.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know if it was like the mix of the coffee with the tequila or what that little flavor was, but it was very kind of savory. It was interesting.
It was good. I thought, and we're dealing with cold weather now, so we might as well now you're drinking just straight up bourbon.
It looks like it. No, it's our traditional cava with pomegranate juice. Yeah, I'll get you some.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely have to have some. So clearly we're doing pretty well right now and just enjoying our shit, but I thought today that we would talk about something that we haven't discussed yet. We've come across it in various points, but I wanted to talk about different governmental officials who have had a thing or two to say about aliens. Specifically today, I'm speaking about one person. So whenever we think about the government and aliens, I feel like there's always some kind of mystery behind it. So what kind of camp are you in? Are you camp the government knows about aliens, is working with them, or camp they don't know shit and they are actually being forthright, clueless?
Oh my God, it's clearly the first. They know.
They
totally
know. Okay.
Totally. Yeah.
You think
because I believe they're real, and I believe that like the Roswell thing.
Yes.
For some reason, I really feel like that's real.
You think that Roswell's real? The government, there was some kind of alien spacecraft that, for some reason crashed in Roswell, New Mexico, and the government was really slow to cover it up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and UFOs, or what do they call them now? UAFs?
Yeah,
unidentified
aerial phenomenon. UAPs.
UAPs. Thank you. Yeah, they know it's real.
I think so. I'm kind of in the camp of, okay, do I think that they know more than what they're saying? Yes. Do I think that the government is not very united at all? And I'm only speaking, I guess, with the United States government. I'll only speak for that because I don't think that they have their shit together. And there are a lot of
groups, they don't. They don't have their shit together.
And they don't know, what is it called? The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
Totally.
That's totally what I think is going on.
Agreed.
And there's a lot of black budget stuff, operations that we just don't know about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And which, it makes sense. But these government officials were like, yeah, I've never heard about anything. Of course they haven't heard about anything. They don't have the clearance to do so. And, likely if you weren't in like some kind of black, now I'm sounding like a total conspiracy theorist, but some kind of like black budget,
I believe that happens too. Like there's some high officials that don't know stuff that we pay for that happen, and because they don't need to know or they're not supposed to know.
Oh, totally.
And they keep that stuff separated and classified out for a reason.
They got to keep it separated.
Keep it separated.
So, okay, that's good to know because I think we're basically on the same.
I think so, yeah.
Page. So, our main man for this story is actually Paul Hellyer. He was Canada's. I was going to say Canada. What an American am I? Canada's former defense minister. So I'm just going to try to give like the briefest of biographies about him. But fuck, we both know that I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to research. So once again, brief. Right. So Paul was born August 6th, 1923 in Waterford, Ontario, and all things really are relatively normal with his upbringing. Once he graduates high school, he went to California to study aeronautical engineering, and he got his pilot's license at the same time. So he's a real overachiever, and you know what? Good for him. We love a determined king.
Sure.
So around this time was World War II, which Paul thought he would enlist into, right? And he was going to become an RCAF pilot, so the Royal Canadian Air Force pilot. He already has his pilot's license, of course. He'll be able to get into that. Well, they didn't have a need for anymore, so he became a gunner, and thank goodness he survived, or we wouldn't have anything more to say about Paul. So, so he did his gunner, he did his service, and in 1949 he began his political career. He actually was the youngest person at the time to be elected to the House of Commons, and he took on a few posts. And later on, when his party had control in 1963, he became the Minister of National Defense, which is really where our story kind of starts.
Okay.
It was under Lester B. Pearson, and he oversaw the unification of the Royal Canadian Navy, the Canadian Army, and the Royal Canadian Air Force. So he brought all those together into a single organization, which is the Canadian Forces. So once again, he had a relatively, normal and successful career in politics, serving in many cabinets and even being one of the longest standing members for the Queen, serving on various advisory boards up until his death, ultimately, in 2021. And this is really where things get spicy. So in 2011, right, he's an advisor at this point. The Daily Mail releases an article about Paul, and they quote him as saying, "I believe in UFOs, and I've seen them." And those are pretty strong words from a dude who spent his entire working life in the government. So what took him so long to come out with these thoughts?
And he was working, this is 2011, so he's still in the
advisory boards and stuff. So he's not like a
government official.
Yeah. I guess not serving on behalf of the government officially. He's more so on kind of like the board of directors kind of thing. So he's on advisory boards for the Queen, but he's not active like in his political career at this point.
So then I think that's the $1 million question. What's making him say this?
Yeah.
What is making him say this? Do you know?
So
first of all, let me back up.
Yeah.
Do you know what he's talking about?
Yes. I'll go into some details of what he's talking about.
Oh.
So there are various
And did it happen a long time ago, before 2011?
Yeah. Okay. So not really. He wasn't like speaking. That's the thing that kind of gets me on this is the dude's not really talking about it while he's serving in any kind of political job. He's talking about it when he's already out.
Well, so self-preservation.
Yes. Self-preservation as in he couldn't say anything beforehand.
While he was official.
Yes. Yeah. I do agree with that. And that's basically what he says. Like, because, the Daily Mail, although it's kind of known as being like a a gossip mag, or like it's not taken very seriously, sometimes it picks up these stories, and they're the only ones who are willing to pick it up because they also deal with, I don't know, Harry Styles is a fucking gray alien and has a toupee
like
or whatever.
What's the fucking
tabloids?
Tabloids.
It's like seen as a tabloid.
Okay.
I mean, even pulling up these articles, which I haven't pulled
the National Enquirer or whatever the hell that is, that garbage. Yeah.
Yes, but but you have these magazines that pick up these articles or these stories, and sometimes they're.
And then how do you filter it out?
You can't. Yeah. I mean, if you're asking me honestly, I kind of think that's a tactic. Because.
Well, a tactic on whose part?
I mean, on the media, who's working potentially with the government. The government, like, hey, look, if the National Enquirer is also saying Bat Boy is like a real thing. If you remember Bat Boy, you know, on the National, I love that kind of shit. But, you know, sometimes they come out with like real stories that are legitimate, and they're the only ones who are willing to actually publish them. Like New York Times isn't going to do it unless they have, you know, a shitload of proof.
Well, thank God for the government that they do, because then it doesn't give the same value. Like for the people that want it buried, they're like, oh, it's the National Enquirer. Who cares? Because they do crazy made up shit anyway. So
and no one's going to believe this person.
No one's going to believe them anyway.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that the first people who came out and like listened to Paul were people at, you know, the Daily Mail, which is like the National Enquirer.
Interesting.
I think that it is like bearing a story or bearing a lead potentially. So the article, you know, really starts about Paul talking about the prior Thanksgiving that he had, which we just passed Thanksgiving at this point. So this is in 2010. He's at Thanksgiving, goes outside, looks up at the sky and sees like a star moving. And he's like, that's not a star. It's definitely not a satellite. It's not a plane. It's nothing. And he's an aeronautical engineer. Remember, he's worked in, you know, the government he's also a pilot. So like this guy knows how aircraft move.
Okay, yeah.
He looks at it, sees it moving, and he's like, it's none of these things that I've ever seen in the sky. The way that it's moving is irregular. What the fuck? So that's the first story he comes out with. And at first when I'm like reading this, I was thinking, fuck, like, so none of this stuff happened while he was like in office. It's only going to be like while he, you know, is like basically a retired dude.
Right.
And ultimately, like, this article, which I'll have in the show notes, it's a weird one. Paul also says, look, the governments know about aliens and have been working on weapons to use against them. They could very well bring us to war with with an alien species without any warning from to any of the people. So
who could? The government could?
Yeah. And it's like he's talking about it like it's one government, right? He's talking to the Daily Mail. Daily Mail is a UK paper. He should be saying the governments, like not one unified, you know.
Gotcha.
So the government knows that aliens exist. They have been working on weapons to use against them. Okay. One, they've been working on weapons to use against them. How the fuck are you gonna what do we have that's going to destroy an alien race or like aliens who are visiting us?
And the only way you would know what weapons would be effective is if you saw them. Right.
You saw them. You were interacting with them. You knew what their capabilities were, what their weak spots potentially were. Yeah, you've already had prior communication with them. Ultimately, there are a lot of claims in this article and a lot of things to question. Do you think, honestly, that the government would be capable of all of these world governments, you know, knowing about these alien species and then also creating weapons that could be used to destroy these government or the aliens?
I think if we knew half of the shit that we didn't know, we would be shocked.
Really?
I think there's things that we don't know that would blow our minds. So to answer your question, I think it's completely plausible.
But I mean, is it plausible? We can't get along at all. Is it plausible that all of the world the governments in the world and like different countries can come together.
Are together on this
Yes.
on this topic?
That's kind of where I'm
That's where I struggle. I struggle with that. Like, I don't think they would go, oh, I normally hate you, but we're going to join forces on aliens. I don't feel like that's plausible.
I completely agree with that. That's really where my bullshit detector kind of starts beeping is really like we can't fucking decide on like making climate pledges. Like let's just like stop like
right,
greenhouse
these
gases.
gray aliens we're gonna come together on.
Yeah, guess what? We're gonna although you know, we do love, I mean, I don't know, humanity kind of loves war, right? Like if there's something we can all come together, if there's anything
we can agree on,
we could agree on is
war.
These and against a force outside of us, right? Like a force that's coming and potentially trying to take over our world.
Yeah.
Let's all get together.
Well,
North Korea, whatever.
That makes sense. I guess yeah. When you put it like that, I guess yeah.
It could potentially happen.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think
it's still hard.
everyone who's like working in that capacity, they're all fucking like egomaniacs as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
So ultimately, you know, the things that he's saying, like, I don't know, he's kind of off the wall on some of them. I'll tell you another quote that he says in this Daily Mail article.
Okay.
So he talks about the Illuminati. Okay, we're talking about aliens. I'm into that. Totally into that. Illuminati, yeah, I'm into it, but it's like, do we really need to have both? Whatever.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, the Illuminati are very real. They control the world. They have communication and access to aliens and could help with climate change, but they don't want to. So the Illuminati is talking. By the way, it exists. It's talking with aliens. They're in direct communication with them. They're controlling the world. They could stop climate, like this climate problem.
The Illuminati are controlling the world? and they're communicating with the aliens, and the aliens could solve things. But the aliens don't want to solve things, or the Illuminati don't want them to solve things.
The Illuminati does not want them to solve things because...
Right, because then there's not the conflict and the...
No, he says it's because they're in bed with big petroleum.
I'm sorry, who's in...
Illuminati.
Illuminati's in control with the...
Come on, Kevin, get on that.
I'm trying.
I know.
And so because they're in bed with big oil,
yes,
they don't want to fix climate change, because then that would mean eliminating big oil and jobs and stuff.
Yeah. In this same article. Exactly. You and I think the exact same thing. I'm like sitting here like, dude, fucking damn, I'm down for this conversation that we're having about aliens. Like, this is yes. But then you bring in the Illuminati, and it almost kind of feels like when you have articles like this that come out, it kind of feels like you're really burying the lead, right?
Yeah.
Here's like the big thing that we're being told is government official is saying, yeah, fucking aliens exist. This is for real.
Okay. Yes.
But then you throw in, or whomever is like listening, you throw in all of this other esoteric bullshit that doesn't really matter.
And you start feeling like you're on the crazy train.
Right. It's like I can't take someone, like, give me one thing at a time. Now, once again, this is me getting into conspiracy land. Okay, I'm in. Here's my ticket, and I'm going into conspiracy land.
Okay.
Conspiracy land, like, look, like, we have one thing, which is aliens. Aliens are, here among us. Government officials are there. What other kind of crazy ass shit can we say, or can we say that maybe he did say, maybe he didn't say, but like, can we insert into this article so people question the legitimacy of what he's saying? And
who was making him insert these things?
Yeah.
Who's saying insert these things to make him not believable? I mean, because this is where I get confused, because, so let's say he goes, let's say he goes to the mail and he goes, hey, I've got the scoop of a lifetime for you, boo.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. And they do this. Well, is it the Daily Mail trying to get him to get on the crazy train because they're in bed with the government and saying we don't want this to be completely plausible? Or do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like if he was initiating this, like you wouldn't think that the Daily Mail would want him to be on the crazy train because they'd be like, this is the scoop.
But what if they're working with the government,
right,
and trying to dissuade, or like, you know, I've heard about this quite a bit where you have someone who's legitimate. Like there's one person I really want to talk about coming up, which we will, Bob Lazar. And he was a government contract employee, and the dude was brilliant, or he's still alive, but they did so much to discredit Bob Lazar. And he was talking about a new element that was discovered like back in the 80s. And the government, like there was so much work to delete basically the legitimacy of who he was. Like you couldn't find people like who were like, oh yeah, Bob did work here. Or like everyone's like, no, this guy's fucking crazy. He's a loon. Why would you ever listen to that? Like, and Bob's like, look, I was in like these government, you know, rooms. We're trying to reverse engineer, alien spacecraft. That's what he was doing. He was trying to reverse engineer it. He saw the alien spacecraft, could not understand how the fuck to make it work. They were trying to figure out how to make it work. And he's like, it ran off of this like element 151 or whatever, whatever. It's some fucking element.
See, that seems completely plausible to me.
But it does seem completely plausible. But when he started coming out with this information, he was being discredited by various journalists, by like his house was like ransacked. Like
they didn't want it coming out.
They didn't want any of this information coming out.
Yeah.
And they like deleted his like any kind of information about like schooling that he had, like classes he took, like
to
totally discredit. So like is it really so far off that we could say potentially he did say some of these things to this reporter, and the reporter said, we're going to add this into the fucking article because it really distracts from the topic.
Or something else. Ooh. What about the editor?
Sorry.
The owner of the magazine, maybe, or the editor
of the Daily
did
Mail.
It. Not the reporter. Maybe the reporter was all like, and then the editor or the owners are like,
we're going to add some other shit.
You need to change this to this or this or this. Could be that too.
I could definitely see that. And I think when it comes to this article at the time, he was serving on various boards having to do with the environment and climate change and trying to help reduce the risks for future generations. So it would make sense that claims like, oh, they're in bed with big petroleum.
Yeah, they twist your words. Yeah. They can twist the words, say, because he could have had a valid point about, I mean, let's be real. People that are in the big oil business, they don't want big oil business to go away.
No, they don't.
Be real. Like, that's the truth with any kind of business, right?
Oh, for sure.
And so I'm sure he had an opinion about that, and it very well could have twisted his words into making him sound like a loony bin to discredit him from all of the other stuff that was really important.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. Like, he, for years, was coming out. He has books out. You could see him talk. Like I said, he just died in 2021. So in August of 2021, he was pretty old. So, but he had been talking about like the alien issues. He would talk about different types of aliens, like, the Greys. Have you heard of the Greys?
See, yes, this is see, I'm with you. I'm so with you. Like, we're so connected because like like if I could sit with him just to talk about that. I don't want to talk about all the other crap.
Yes.
If I can just talk about that, because I told you before, I feel like Roswell is a thing.
It's a real thing. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I know that's not the only thing. But if you could talk to somebody just about that, the aliens, and we're going to talk about the gray people in just a second. I would just die. Like that would be.
It would be amazing.
Fascinating.
Yeah, because then you could ask questions and things like that.
Yes. So you were saying, do I know about the gray people because
he talks about it. He's like, oh yeah, there are various life forms of like aliens. There are the grays, there are the whites. The grays are like, okay, think about gray aliens.
That's the one you probably see all the time with the little triangular
and the
face
eyes.
and the big black eyes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the grays. The whites are like, they look like really tall, Scandinavian, beautiful people.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's like, oh yeah, the whites can actually like walk around with us, and they are working at military bases. Like these motherfuckers are actually around. But the thing is
so
like
they look like humans.
They look like humans, like really tall. The tall whites is what they call them. So they're really, really tall. Like, you know, we're talking like 6, 7 feet tall or whatever. Like way taller than me.
Like, so are they would be hidden, or they wouldn't have to be hidden?
They wouldn't necessarily have to be hidden. Like the thing that would be a little bit strange is that they're really tall and they're beautiful. They tend to be really, really attractive. But depending on who you're asking, and in the lore of like aliens, which in a future episode we'll talk about the different types of aliens that are out there.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. So the aliens, the tall whites, they look human. They're like humans, just really, really tall and beautiful, gorgeous. Like we're talking, like think about like I'll go to a place that this is just the first person who popped into my head. I'm a hockey fan. Gabriel Landeskog from the don't know
sports.
So Gabriel Landeskog from the Colorado Avalanche is like beautiful, blonde hair, blue eyes, like gorgeous.
Yeah.
Or like what are those the Skarsgård, the one who was in like True Blood and stuff. He's like beautiful.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm really not doing well. But like think like really tall, blonde.
Yes, I get it.
Yeah, and muscular, like muscular, like kind of like godly. Yeah, like what we would think of like I don't
perfect human. Yeah.
yeah. Only like blonde and blue, which maybe that's what your thoughts are.
Maybe that's what you like.
Yeah. So anyway, he's like there are various life forms. They're interacting with us. The whites can fit in. And they do fit in. They just look tall and beautiful, right?
Okay.
So it's not like they like you would be staring at them like, oh my God, you're fucking gorgeous.
Gotcha,
you know?
Yeah.
So they stick out in that sense, but no other sense. They're still humanoid. Okay. Not like a gray, right?
Right. That's obvious.
Yeah. Not like an insectoid. Mm-hmm. Or what was the praying mantis or what was it that you were talking about?
No.
During ZIA, you didn't say that?
Oh, yes. The ones that fed on children's glands.
Yes.
Yeah. But I don't know what they look like. Or, what's his name?
Reptilians. That's another one.
Yeah. No, it wasn't Bob. What was his name?
The two first names?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Alex. Yeah. Alex Christopher. Yeah.
Yes.
Alex they never really explained what those guys look like.
Yeah, so, the thing, okay, so, you know, we're talking, he keeps on talking about, you know, hey, look, aliens are among us. They have technology that could help us change our warring and polluting ways. Okay. So, there's a later article on the Daily Mail, because that's like his. He and the Daily Mail.
To the Daily Mail. They've got like this.
They're
relationship.
thick as thieves. Yeah.
Even after they reported him and made him look like a crazy person.
See, that's the thing that kind of gets me. I'm like, why would you go back to them? But this is in 2011. So wait, let me see.
He's like, maybe this is the only way I can get my story out.
Nobody else is listening to me. Mm-hmm. So he at this point he's 90 years old. And this is
in 2011.
So okay, let me back up. Okay. This is actually not directly with the Daily Mail. Okay. This is a report that the Daily Mail creates about a television show, like an interview that he has with a Russian television station. So let's see. This was in 2014.
So he goes on an interview with a Russian television station. Mm-hmm. And the Daily Mail
reports on it,
doing a piece on that interview.
Yes, okay. And that's what this is. So he's 90 at this point, and what he's saying on the article or in the television show is, hey, look, there are actually like 80 different species of aliens. By the way.
Okay, wait. No, never mind. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go.
How does he know there's 80? 80? It's very specific. Like, has he seen 80 different aliens?
That's the thing, is like, that's the thing that kind of gets me that he's talking about. He doesn't really say. It was really kind of a weird interview anyway. And the Daily Mail.
Speaking to the Russians, why? Because he's Canadian, right?
Yeah, and he's on like governmental boards in Canada.
Okay, so maybe he's trying to get the word out. So anyone that'll listen to me, somehow he gets a hold of some Russian mag.
Yes.
They're like, yeah, we can do your story. He talks about 80 different races of aliens.
Yeah, he's kind of like, it's like an overview of all this stuff, like, right? Like, you have to kind of say, I'm just going to play devil's advocate on this one. So when you're doing an interview, you know that they're going to be using pieces, like little bites to...
Of course.
Yeah. So they're using little bites of conversation or of like little snippets of audio that they know that he's going to, or that people are going to pick up, that will pick up like stories, right?
I spit on myself. Yeah. I didn't have it on camera.
I was going to say, I'm like, gosh, you definitely outed yourself here, because I was the only one who saw it.
I did out myself. Sorry. Okay, so go ahead.
So he's trying to get as much information, it seems like, potentially out. How else are other people going to listen to it if you say some pretty extreme shit, like absurd stuff? The question is, how much of this absurd stuff is true? Is it all true? Is he just trying to get more and more eyes on him? I don't know. I think that you're really kind of starting to confuse two issues. One, he keeps on saying that these governments, like governmental officials, need to just be straight out, like all out, and tell the people the truth. We know about aliens. Aliens are out there. Why can we not admit this to them? That's one issue.
Yes.
Then you start confusing it with all this other bullshit, and then trying to push a narrative that you're on the board for, which kind of, I don't know, rubs me the wrong way.
Yes.
But the things that he was saying, I mean, it honestly does sound like a science fiction episode rather than reality. So he says, we've had over, let's see here. We've had over 80 different types. Anyone from... What was...
Can everyone hear that? It's like, what is that? Is it a doorbell? Oh, I think it was a doorbell.
Oh, okay. I'm like, is it a ghost? Is it the aliens trying to talk to us right now? So
he this is where he's talking about the 80 aliens.
Yes, so he's talking about the 80 aliens, and he's like, really, the reason that the aliens came to pay a lot. They've always been around, but they're really starting to care because of the atomic bomb.
The aliens are starting to care about the planet because of the atomic bomb.
Yes. Okay. And like, are we going to ruin the planet?
Okay. All right.
This is something that continues to come up. You'll hear it often, like, alien sightings around nuclear weapons facilities.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Things that don't like malfunction, like where, sometimes around nuclear facilities, there might be some gunfire or whatever, and guns stop working. Things stop working, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So that's something I've definitely heard. But he said there's been a lot more activity in the last few decades since we invented the atomic bomb. And ultimately, they're really concerned that we're going to use it again, because all of us in this, universe are connected, and that can have long-lasting effects, not just on planet Earth, but on other planets potentially. So he's basically saying, these are all like really good aliens. They don't really want to destroy us. I'm like, dude, I don't know about that. I think it's a little fucking scary. And he just keeps on going, like, on saying they've always been visiting, and they're not really impressed with who we are as people.
Okay, sorry, I wouldn't be impressed either.
Yeah. I know. Like, what do we really have behind us? Like, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, what is there? Like
if you look at the grand picture, the grand scheme of things, you'd be like, ew.
I mean,
People are like,
go on to Facebook.
Oh, my God. Right.
Go onto Facebook and you have like a great, like a clear view, or Twitter in that sense, you know. So he says, you know, it's because, you know, we spend way too much time fighting each other and too much money on military stuff and destroying things, which, you know, makes sense. And we don't really take care of our own people. So he continues to go into on this interview, like, we need to save the planet. This is something that they want. He's also on these, like, yes, we do need to like stop polluting. We do need to like start being more sustainable, but you're also serving on these boards. Is that the reason that you're trying to push this agenda? Mm-hmm. Is it because of that? Or are you speaking on behalf of the aliens? Like, I'm just very confused as to what it is that he's, you know,
doing.
And like, where is he pulling this information from? Because he's also saying like, hey, there's a federation of planets, just like Star Trek.
Oh my God.
You know? And that they can't interfere with us because that's like,
how come we're not part of the Federation of Planets?
Well, okay, if you want to go through Star Trek, okay, I'm a Trekkie.
Yeah.
So Star Trek, like one of the prime
directives.
Prime directive. The prime directive is you cannot interfere with other cultures until you get until like the people or the world is actually has a, excuse me, I just swallowed. Until they have warp capabilities. So until they're able to leave space and like travel the cosmos, not just like go to the moon or whatever.
You can't connect or interact.
Yes, until people can actually leave and go outside of the cosmos and explore and interact with other cultures. That's when at least in Star Trek, the United Federation of Planets would come down and say, hey, welcome. This is what exists.
Gotcha.
Here's our protocol kind of thing.
Okay.
So he's saying, you know, that's why, which it sounds like a fucking Star Trek episode. It's like, yeah, could you have pulled this out of The Next Generation?
Although I just have to sound like a crazy person and say a lot of the Star Trek stuff is so plausible.
Dude.
Like Gene Roddenberry, like his mind, he thought of stuff that was so literally science fiction that you look at today and you're like, either we have it, close to it, or plausibly could have it soon. Crazy.
It is totally crazy. And I would say that's 100% like good creative writers, but also it's the chicken and the egg, right? So, you know, you have like something like a Kindle, like Kindles, Star Trek. And you can look this up. Star Trek, a Star Trek nerd was like, I want to fucking make that. You see Jean-Luc Picard like reading like, you know, an anthology. Yeah, like on a book, not a real book. He has like a little thing and he's like, I'm going to try to figure out how the hell to make that work. And today, what do we have? We have Kindles,
we have
and like,
those little pads.
And we can read. I mean, I have an iPad right here. Yeah, you can do whatever. Yeah, it's insane. We don't need to
literally go, computer, show me.
Yes.
I do that in my freaking house.
That's right. It was going off before. You'd be like, oh, computer, play blah blah blah, and it'll just start playing.
And you're like, computer, shut up.
Yeah, it turns off. So, you know, he talks about the prime directive. He talks about, you know, the future. And part of me wonders, this is, you know, you can go on to Paul Hellier's like website. You can buy books that he has. You can listen to talks that he has. My question is how much of the experience that he's had as a, you know, minister of defense or in the government, in the Canadian government, how much of that experience is he pulling from and how much of it is stuff that he's heard?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't know.
I want to believe in it. And I want to believe that like.
So he's written books. Interviews.
He's had multiple interviews. He would go to a bunch of like conventions. So you can go on YouTube and just find like him talking about these things. You can find this Russian interview. But I and as much as I want to believe it, I also question how much of this is like coming to the end of your life and looking back and saying, what do I have? Like, what kind of blueprint or what kind of legacy do I have behind me? How can I move forward and try to get things that are going to help the future generations? Potentially, if I were really playing devil's advocate, I would say that maybe that's where a lot of this is coming from, is from that. I want to believe in aliens. Do I believe now? Like this guy, this is another thing. This guy was saying it years before we had a conference in the United States. Like we just had one a year ago or a year or two ago about UAPs. And now we're telling military officials like, hey, if you've seen something, say something, right? Like report it. We'll start actually taking this seriously. It's not going to end your career. We need to start keeping tabs and records on these things instead of just shutting you guys up. Something's going on. He was coming out with stuff like this years before. Did he maybe have friends and intelligence officers that knew more than he did? Yeah, I think that's probably it. And that's something that he even says, like, not every government official is told about these things.
Right.
Some people are, but some people are not. And just looking at him, it would not surprise me if where he's pulling a lot of this information is not from his own experience, but from people that he knows. Because he talks about like the tall whites and how they're working on military bases in Nevada, like specifically. He's talking about all these like different, but this guy wasn't
it can possibly bases. Be, and
yeah, like if he had real, I guess like the validity is still questioned because this guy doesn't have any true proof.
Yeah.
Or like
they hardly ever do.
No, well, but there are people who are starting to come out and saying like, hey, look, I'm not working in this capacity anymore. Here's the proof that I have. Like the guy that I was talking about earlier, Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar has proof. Bob Lazar has a lot of shit that he saved, information that he saved. This guy doesn't. It's interesting though that a government official would open up that door and start having these conversations. I think it's incredibly important to open that door and start the conversation instead of just turning everything off and saying, yeah, this just doesn't exist. Do we think that Paul is legit? Like from an alien perspective, because obviously he is legit in a governmental like capacity.
I feel like I certainly, this is the first time I've heard of Paul. I certainly don't know, but because I do believe in them,
yes,
I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt at this point.
Yeah.
Again, and this happens with all kinds of people, that then you start talking about things that make me go, why did you say that? 'Cause now I think you're a crazy person.
I know, you throw in the Illuminati. I think that we have covered a couple of things that are huge red flags or red herrings, excuse me. Huge red herrings. Hey, pay attention to this, pay attention to this. Don't pay attention to the actual shit that like is important.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I feel like it happens often.
Yeah. I agree.
It's a great example of it happening.
So I have a question. Back when you said in 2011, I think when he comes out to the mail or something of that
Daily
nature.
Mail, yeah.
Do you have the example when he was talking about the UFOs or whatever? I mean, do you happen to know of any exact examples of stories or things of him talking about literally seeing a ship or seeing an alien? Or
so he did have an example of him seeing a ship, specifically a ship that was the first thing that he came out with. Was Thanksgiving. He went outside and he saw a ship. Was it in a governmental capacity? No, he was at his house and he looks outside.
That's the thing he saw, the whatever. He thought, not a star, not a plane, not a whatever. Was there anything beyond that gave
a specific situation where he's like, I talked to this or this,
right? Or yeah. I witnessed a autopsy, or I worked on this plane or this ship, or I mean, are you aware of anything like that, or is it just him talking?
He said he's never met an alien. In another article by the Daily Mail, he said, talking about this was the Russian interview that the Daily Mail is covering, and he says, "Look, I've never actually met an alien myself, but I've seen them. I've never met a tall white. I've never shook hands with them, but I saw them outside of my cabin." Which is where he said he saw up in the sky after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But he just goes on to describe different types of aliens. So like, I told you about the tall whites, who are working with the U.S. Air Force in Nevada. So, hey guys, if you're in, if you're in Nevada near the Air Force base, there, go and see if you can find any tall white people.
Take a picture.
Yeah. Take a picture, share it with us. You know, you can find us on all social media or at the Bazaar AF. So, he actually said, that the tall whites are able to get, this is another quote that I'm like, this is fucking bizarre. He said they're able to get away with that. They had a couple of their ladies dressed as nuns to go into Las Vegas to shop, and they weren't detected. Dressed as nuns, they go into Las Vegas off of the military base, go into Las Vegas, shop as tall whites would, right? Because that makes sense. Let's go. It's like, it's almost like they're dressed like, how often do you see fucking nuns just in public anyway? And out of all the places, Las Vegas, the city of sin.
Right?
I guess when you're saying it in that way, like, it makes sense because there's so many crazy people. Well, it's just so weird. It's such a bizarre thing.
And Las Vegas is full of weird people anyway, so you're like, oh, that fits.
But I would think that, okay, like, if you're trying to go undercover in a different culture, like, you would still stick out like a sore thumb, like, oh, what are we going to do? We're going to cover our head, put on habits, like all this shit.
Right.
And then we're going to go into the city of sin and start shopping. Like,
as nuns.
It's so peculiar and bizarre that it makes zero sense.
That you're like, maybe it's plausible because it's so crazy.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Maybe it is plausible. Yeah. Like, what would an alien race do? Something fucking outlandish.
Right. Because they don't know any better.
They don't know. Yeah. It's like children like saying something or doing something totally not okay by our cultural standards.
Right. Oh God.
So he said, he was saying that. Then he said, there's another group of aliens. We talked about the short grays who have slim arms and are about 5 feet high or tall, with large heads. That's the standard one that we know about, right? Like the gray aliens.
Okay, yeah.
And then the third group is called Nordic blondes. And this is the one that I was actually talking about. If you were to meet one, that you'd probably wonder if they're from Denmark or somewhere. So like these are the things that Mr. Hellier is saying, and you're like, fuck, dude, like, yeah. You're giving us, I believe in aliens. Okay, cool. Yeah, we all do. Like, join the fucking club.
Right.
But no hard proof. No, like, hey, look.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's a top official in the government, or I know through the grapevine, I'm not going to fucking name names because that could risk them or whatever. They said this is what's happening. He's not saying any of this. He's saying, I've never met a fucking alien, but this is what's going on. It's like, Paul, we don't believe you. Right.
Exactly.
Paul, I mean, we believe that you believe this, and we believe it. We believe in aliens.
Yes, but you're not helping anything.
You're just like really confusing everything right now. Yeah. And then you're just throwing in all this shit that you have like a stake in or a claim in, which is fucking environmental stuff, because you're serving on boards for that. Ugh. Like, I don't know. It's just it's really confusing. Yeah. When I first saw and heard of him, I thought, fuck, like, this is exactly what we need. We need someone who's like, yeah, like in the government, like knows what he's doing.
Tell it like it is.
Yeah, tell it like it is. Like, fuck it. Like, fuck the man. Like, I'm speaking for the people. Like, I'm all about that. But then the dude just like goes off about Illuminati and like all this other esoteric shit going like nuns fucking dressing up in Nevada. Like, this is very, very weird.
Like, you're ruining it, Paul.
You're totally ruining it, Paul. So I don't know. Our thoughts, yay or nay?
Again, I'm
maybe
pieces.
Yeah, same.
But it's like it's like going to a trial. Those lawyers will discredit the shit out of you and make you say things that make you sound like cray cray, and then you don't believe anything. And you're like, well, how can I believe anything you say? Because you're fucking nuts.
Yeah, you're a total nutso person.
Yes. In fact, you know what? It's time for
what?
Wow, crazy. You're crazy, girl.
Paul gets that.
Paul does get that. Well, Paul, thank you for being some fun, interesting, topic.
Thanks for giving us a discussion.
Yeah, and potentially who knows? Maybe some other people heard him talking and they're like, maybe they gave him some stories. Maybe it made them think like, yeah, the people of the world need to know that this stuff exists. Maybe it allowed for stories to come out that potentially wouldn't have come out.
Yeah, maybe.
So I'll give him you're crazy. But
yeah.
Good on you, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, thanks for the great discussion.
Thanks you
today.
Paul. Yeah, thank you, Paul. Peace. Pour one out for you. Peace
out, buddy. Cheers.
Peace. Yeah. Thank you for being here for me with that
that
weird one.
Thanks. That was good. We will see you in a couple weeks.
Yes, just in a couple of weeks.
Okay. See ya.
Bye. Bye.